warm welcome to Impossible Live. Welcome back if you're joining us again. And if you are joining us again, you know the routine. Let us know where you're joining us from. Let us know a way we can help you in between our impossible lives. But I am so delighted at Guin is to say she's a brilliant gem kind of gift from the universe would be an understatement. And I had the pleasure of meeting her inside of the positive intelligence community. And it's funny, we met on an app. Gwen had, I'm part of cohort 9. And Gwen, which cohort were you part of?
I was 13. Lucky
Okay,
number 13.
So cool. So when Gwen popped in, I had an opportunity because of amazing Angie Alexander to be invited in for some of the orientations of new classes. So we might have met briefly in a really large, very crowded Zoom. But Gwen had one of those amazing questions or comments or insights inside the app. And for those of you who know me, tech, not always Mel's friend, not always spending time in apps. And I reached out and we connected on LinkedIn. And we connected, but as many of our online relationships go, there's a reason, season, or a lifetime. And then I was in a challenge in Karen Curry Parker's amazing quantum human design community. And she has a group on Meta. And I see during a challenge, my first full 9-day challenge. I was so proud of myself at the end. But I see this amazing testimonial from Guin White. And I'm like, oh, that has to be the Guin White. And so you're going to laugh. That is how Gwen and I actually had a chance to inflate the online, I don't even know what we'd call it. In the old days, we were around Selectrics and keyboards, but to inflate the relationship so that it had, wonderful, rich vibrations and dimensions. And on that note, I'm going to let the amazing Gwen introduce herself in a warm welcome as a guest on for Impossible Live.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much, Melanie. Yes. I feel like we were destined to connect in so many ways and on so many levels. We are definitely on the wavelengths, as it were. And all of the virtual water coolers that we've kind of bumped into each other around has been truly remarkable. And I'm really excited to be here with you and dive into a conversation about trusting your quiet genius. For those who don't know me, I'm Guin White of Quietly Influential, and I specialize in helping introverted entrepreneurs, business leaders sell effortlessly without pressure, without inauthentic scripts, without turning themselves into someone they're not, without tying themselves in knots. And I do this through a blend of human design, quantum human design, trust-based selling, and ethical branding to help people attract the clients that they want in a way that feels aligned and natural, and maybe even a little bit effortless. I firmly believe that selling isn't about being louder, it's about being clearer. And so today I really want to explore how quiet leaders, how the quiet people among us, the introverts of the world, can tap into their innate strengths to lead, to succeed, to sell without burning out, without betraying who they are.
Woo! Gwen, we got lots of sage energies in the house. Okay. Lots of manifestor generator energies in the house, and a warm welcome to Jen Berger and my sister from another mother, Marie Vega Byrne. Both amazing and stellar, also positive intelligence coaches. And if anybody else is joining us who has not ever explored positive intelligence, you'll see hashtag mental fitness in almost every event post on LinkedIn, and you'll see I use hashtag mental fitness for life because we can all use some help, whether it's with internal saboteurs, whether, hi Lisa, warm welcome, whether it's, and hey Julie, how are you doing? Woo, lots of sage contagion in the house, you know. But in that process of leaders and as Guin helped pick this amazing title, Trusting Your Quiet Genius. We all have those inner dialogues or narratives. Guin particularly has been so helpful in terms of, and I owe her the most amazing testimonial. It is truly coming because after today, I'll stop with the edits and I'll just post it. But Gwyn's really helped with the energy blueprint part that I was stuck in. When we got into positive intelligence, hey, Tiffany, how are you? Welcome back. When I got into positive intelligence, I started exploring and opened up the vulnerability for me. It really also opened the concept of sustainable energy. But in that vulnerability thing, that led into trust, which was the transparency. But I still was fiddling with the energy part, which is where, and it's how I saw Gwen's testimonial in a week where I really was questioning that. And in our conversations, in every conversation, she helps me carve out the blueprint part. And that can, for some of us, can be so challenging. And not only in a trust journey, but quiet leaders or with introverts, or just tapping into our creativity. Where in the world, Gwen, from a design or a coaching perspective, where in the world would you suggest we start?
Well, yeah, interesting question. You know, this concept of quiet genius that we're talking about today comes from trust. And I think a lot of it is self-trust. You know, I think when it comes to leadership, and I think we've maybe all been taught or conditioned that the idea of leadership has to look a certain way. And we're not taught to trust ourselves, trust our own way. And, you know, particularly those of us who tend to be introverted tend to have, you know, energy patterns that are contrary to the always on high energy extroverted brand of leadership that tends to be so highly valued and lionized, you know. But what if quietness, what if whatever it is that you bring to the table contains within it a unique kind of genius, you know, that's actually perfect for leading, perfect for success, perfect for selling. It's just perfect differently, you know? So to me, trust is really where it's, you know, where it's at. You know, quiet genius is about trusting your natural strengths, you know, whether that's deep listening, whether that's seeing connections others miss, whether that's, you know, trusting when you're on and knowing that you need time to recharge your batteries, that you need time for reflection. You know, being able to create a sense of calm and trust in your conversations is an enormous leadership trait that I think is overlooked in so many cases. And yeah, the idea of vulnerability in leadership, admitting that we all have saboteurs, and recognizing that, guess what? Those saboteurs are simply strengths that we tend to overuse. So yeah.
Ooh, boy. But I love what you're saying. When I was really struggling with the energy part. And this year I kind of after our holiday conversations, I actually tossed out the the alphabet. Hey Dell, warm welcome. More manifesting generator energy in the house. Dell, this is amazing Guin, who I've been trying to put you in touch with. It's not an accident that you are here and joining us today late in your day, in your UK evening. But that whole challenge of trying to recharge batteries and mm, at events, people kind of sense my ambivert energy in public. It appeared like they were dealing with an extrovert. And part of the the energy huddle, and you'll laugh, I got an answer, so to speak, on Friday, just before a long drive, when on the Today Show they were reminding us, Al Roker made a comment about the four types of introverts. And they were talking about um, anxious introverts, restrained introverts, social introverts.
Mhm.
And there's a fourth one that'll come to me shortly. But I thought it was really interesting because we think a lot of time our styles in human design, people mention types and strategies. Uh, but I think, and I really appreciate your help because you'll laugh. I'm preparing for a series of trust master classes and Amalia Gardner's amazing audio leadership club. For those who are on LinkedIn, you'll see it was my last post. And for those of you on other platforms, you'll see it in other posts. And if you're in our meta group, you'll see it there too. But I think the part of just exploring trust and around what Gwen is saying, because I tease Gwen all the time. Gwen is around as if hmm, part of Gwen's gems, Gwen is inside my head. She's reading the intuition. Today, as I was typing about one of my guests tomorrow, who will speak about a topic that's also a gem for Gwen. Bryn Tillman will join us tomorrow of Ask SSL and Social Sales Link, and been a LinkedIn coach. I've been a member of her amazing community for a long time. But Bryn helps with trust based conversations for sales. Gwen does it too. And Gwen mentioned trust based sales. I started doing my amazing happy dance with a green drink in hand. But I think your gems on that, because also Gwen's got an amazing YouTube channel. We'll share it. I fell in love with her tips for how introverts could kind of get through the holidays. And what cracked me up about it was I saw it in a LinkedIn post and I clicked through to Gwen's YouTube channel. And here in an amazing podcast video, Gwen tells us in like 9 minutes 25 tips for how to get through the holidays. So and I crack up because, as Gwen would say, no accidents,
Yeah.
Where, in terms of the active and deep listening for that quiet genius, how do we tap into our inner voice, our intuition, um, in a way that you would say would help us start to trust or listen to that quiet genius, as opposed to the commercials people see at 2 in the morning or the ads they see. Or, as I was just saying to Gwen, my mom was on Facebook. There's a warning message. The message is not true. So rather, I'm grateful she called me. But as how do you tap into that internal part in a consistent way? And maybe you'll just say, for us, it's a work in progress. It always will be.
Yeah, work in progress is certainly a part of it. I think one of the ways that I support people in uncovering their own quiet genius, their own intuition, is through human design. You know, this blueprint that shows you your natural strengths. And I think of particular interest are the ones the blueprint shows that you're unconscious of. You know, it shows you how to make aligned decisions, how you're wired to communicate, even sell, without feeling like you're performing. You know, some people are designed to, you know, wait for the right invitation before they share what's coming up for them. Others, albeit a small percentage, are here to initiate and share and move according to their urges. You know, in any case, when you start following what's naturally aligned, when you become so fully self-aware of your unique energy instead of forcing what you're taught or what society models, what marketing tells us, which is frankly not aligned for most of us. It's amazing how much easier everything feels. It's amazing how much easier it is to hear that quiet voice and to build that trust. You know, it's interesting that we're talking about this right now. The vibes of the moment, the energetic soup that we're in are all about doubt and confusion and revelation and reflection. You know, we're in this moment of questioning and logical analysis, mental confusion, which leads to clarity as long as we give ourselves the permission to reflect and to get to know ourselves, you know, creating powerful energy for seeking truth, for seeking trust, and for finding that resolution by integrating our intuitive understanding with our logical knowledge, our logical knowing. So, yeah, I encourage everyone right now to use their questioning mind to explore any unresolved thoughts, to allow time for reflection to guide you, you know, towards your clearest insights, your best solutions. That's, you know, that's really where we are in the moment.
Wow. Reflections has been one of the themes of our playlists for many moons. And it's funny, I think about the playlist, so to speak, as we're approaching 3 years of Impossible Lives. And, you know, I think it relates to the themes. It's probably what encouraged me this year to not have a word of the year, to have some themes. But I think that part about what you're saying that really hits me is in the trust journey.
Yes.
I learned to be an active and a deep listener for Mel, which is why that hashtag Ignite Trust is there. Granted, it's in the frame, and I appreciate Exquisite Eve for making sure it's always front and center. But Be Visible with Mel exists because I had to remember, listen to that voice and remember to show out and share it. But I also really had to learn, and in the process of clients teaching me this, and I love it. Wonderful young woman years ago said, you know, you mention names. Every time you mention a name, I need you to tell me why that person may be important to me. Like I can say now, Del, Guin, I've been meaning to connect you for quite some time. But she said, when you're mentioning people and in this process, because I talk about it all the time when we're creating connections to scale or creating collaborations to scale, or we're trying to create lasting relationships, we always need to help each other frame stuff in terms of why is this important to me? You know, they would say the what's in it for me, the with them part. And I think part of what you're saying about active and deep listening, I really had to learn to sit with listening to myself. I didn't always share that voice outwardly. And it's funny because that'll come up in a future on Possible Live because we think about the things that they're buried. I'll say they're in a journal. They're in a journal. They're on a priority list. They're on a rainy day list. They're on a, hey, how do I want to show up to today? But I love what you're saying. And Jen's got a quote that'll be a mic drop for us shortly. And Jen, thank you for manifesting generator here, Guin. So let's go. You take us wherever, and we'll slowly digest Jen's statement too.
Nice. Yes. Yeah. I love what Jen's saying, that this, these ideas that, that we're talking about do apply to extroverts. They apply to all of us. And it's such, wisdom that we are seeing reflected back here. Yeah. We all need to practice these skills to become more balanced humans. Indeed. Yeah.
Oh, that balance is an interesting thing. I think of it sometimes, as you're saying, in this chaotic world, and before then, as kind of a seesaw. It's kind of a teeter-totter. Reminds me of the tops we used to play with when we were kids.
Yes.
And they would fight for balance. I was in a room recently and in a conversation, and someone asked about work-life balance, and I said, I think it's an illusion.
Work-life integration, I think, is probably more where we're at these days, because when we are living more holistic existences, more conscious existence, we're almost always working. We're always building those connections, as you were saying. We're always having those conversations. We're always creating dialogues. And it's integrating the inner self with the outer world. These trust-based conversations that we are constantly having, whether they're with ourselves or with those that we are connecting with, connecting at scale with, where we might be connecting with potential clients, those people that we so deeply care about and want to help and serve. We're really, we're really giving those in our lives the opportunity, including ourselves, as you talk about visibility a lot, Mel, to feel seen, to be understood, to be genuinely supported. And it is a balancing act that we're talking about. And it's an energetic balancing act, Yeah.
Oof. I think about that from the perspective of around the time we met, I was questioning in terms of, the centers in human design is, learning that I had a motor center that either is, and Gwen will help me with this, it's either also a pressure center, but all of my energy is coming from the root center.
Yeah.
And it I think of it sometimes as having two places to go, or the visual of it coming from our feet, from whether I'm show up in a situation grounded, the balancing act of being really fully present.
Yes.
And on that note, warm welcome, America's Supermom. Welcome back, Lachelle.
A very interesting connection to the root center here. One thing we were talking about before we kind of kicked things off today was timing. And, the root center, many of the themes of human design come back to timing, but the root center in particular has to do with right timing. And yeah, when we are talking about balance in our lives, yeah, this idea of timing and grounding, balancing activity with inactivity, the root center is very much, heavily thematic when we talk about these ideas. And it's also about, it's really interesting that we talk about trust. The root center has to do with foundational trust in ourselves, trust in, the foundations that were laid when we were young. And many of us, have had challenging, rearings. We live, in a highly conditioned environments. And so really understanding who we are at our essence, as we grow and get out into the world and start sharing who we are. Yeah, it's, again, the journey of the quiet leader is a challenging one. And knowing how to sell, I think, once again, is a really interesting concept. Who is it? Daniel Pink, in his book, he talked about, I think, 94% of people in any organization have some form of selling that they have to engage in. And so, parents have to sell to children. In our relationships, even our personal relationships, we're constantly in a mode of of selling energy, and it's about being trustworthy first and foremost. Again, a foundation and a root center concept. It's not about persuading, it's about our position. And so, we've got to be clear. We've got to align ourselves and what it is that we're bringing to the table in a way that those who are on the receiving end understand, but more importantly, are understood. That they are understood, so that there's no need to push or convince. Everyone's searching for something, right? And we all, can be the answer, the solution that someone is searching for. We can be the support that they need. One of my favorite quotes is from the French philosopher and activist Simone Weil. And she says that attention is the sincerest form of generosity. And I feel like that's one of kind of my foundational quotes, both as a leader and as someone who helps and supports others in the world. And also in the idea of trust-based selling, I think, that really can form the idea that selling can be giving as opposed to taking, which I think a lot of people, particularly quiet people, introverts, who feel uncomfortable with the idea of selling because it feels like taking. But we can flip the script. We can give our attention. We can give our authenticity. We can give clarity. We can give insights and give permission for someone to invest in themselves.
Oh my gosh, I love that. It's so generous in there. So generous, because I think sometimes we're in a world where people share the negative narratives. They share the complaints. I was looking at a couple of things online this weekend, and I, teacher's kid, I spent a lot of time sometimes looking at reviews, and it's, one of the reasons why, and I laughed. Bill Carmody said it recently in an appointment generating training he had in the PQ community. And he was talking about fractals and referrals, and the reminder that really that 84% of us, and it was a Nielsen study, but 84% of us trust recommendations from someone we know.
Yes.
But I think somewhere in there, in the gratitude part, the ability to share, what we appreciate, and in that sense, that really can be part of the keys of generosity. Because I think sometimes I've been having a lot of discussions recently with and with friends and with clients about the word serving, that occasionally in the narratives that are happening now currently in our fragile world, as I always call it, there are some people who are using the term serving who are in the taking industry.
Well,
it's not the here's the gift on the platter. This is yours. This is yours. Welcome to this. This is yours.
Yeah.
Let's celebrate it. Let's claim it. Let's help you build it. And I think that in conversations I've been having about Ignite Trust, that sometimes is one of the challenges. I love that you're reminding us. And just like Lachelle, America's Supermom with 15 children, who is probably outside of school or on her way to an after school something right now, that in that process of giving with generosity, so much more of what's natural or what helps us balance ourselves or helps others attain the integration. Because I really was concerned about the alignment part of balance, but as you're gently and wonderfully encouraging and inviting us, we work on the integration part. We would think of it as kids, like playing Old Maid or games like that, where cards matched, numbers matched. And but I really love, as when Jen helped us frame it earlier, in alignment is the reminder of both sides of the coin, or both sides. I always call it of the lens or the kaleidoscope. If we just change our view, we just change our seat. But some of us still with the blueprint, and even from having an idea and you're not sure that you want to present it to others, you're not sure it's dusted off. It's even with the imperfect edges, and I love that beautiful quote that you shared, that I'm going to add that to the list of inspiration. But when you mentioned Daniel Pink, it reminds me in some of, his writings and his works, that he's sharing a different lens for us. And I love when you mentioned it before about defiant leaders. We're not sure it's genius when we're not sure it's ready to be shared, that it's not just, another diaper headed for the landfill, or for the wash, if we're, eco-friendly. How do you sort blueprint wise, sales wise, design wise? How do you sort for the genius that is you're helping us frame or understand what is in you, or what's in all of us?
Well, yeah, I think we could go back to kind of our theme of the day, you know, trusting our own quiet genius. Again, when we start to see leadership, sales, connection as service, and again, truly service, not lip service, you know, when we see those things, even as an act of love that is founded on trust, that starts with deep self-trust, the whole energy changes.
Mm.
You know, we're no longer convincers, we're helping. You know, this isn't about trying to be someone you're not, turning yourself into someone you're not. It's really about uncovering who you truly are. And hey, what if the things you thought were flaws, you know, those open centers were actually your biggest strengths? And I think that's one thing that I love human design for, is that we get to see all frequencies of our blueprint, the high frequency and the shadow. And those shadows, we have to face them. We, you know, we get to know our deepest saboteurs and shift them. But first and foremost, we need to know them. And we need to recognize that they'll always be with us. And they can be helping. They can be serving others, because others have the same shadows. Everyone has saboteurs and flaws. And, you know, that really taps into our humanity.
Mm. Wow, you're hitting so many different levels. And Lachelle, our reader, our Lachelle of, you know, she's they have an amazing book clubs in Elephant Strategy and in The Power of the Moment. And Lachelle wants to know, what book of Daniel's were we discussing?
And then, of course, the title of it escapes me, Lachelle. I have one of my open centers in my blueprint is my open head center and open mind center. And if I don't write it down, it is likely to fly out of there. So, but I will definitely go track that down, because it's in my library, and I'll follow up and let you know.
I will go peek too, Lachelle, because she'll
Yeah.
laugh. It's part of the resources for creating connections to scale. That process of discovering styles, whether it's learning styles, communication styles, adaptive styles, as I like to call them, for the ones that don't fit in to our communication style or our gratitude or recognition style. Daniel's got a book with some really cool introvert gems, and we will definitely add some of those there. Yeah, is this? I haven't found an ambivert um, test that was perfect yet, but he has some really amazing suggestions as we're exploring our different styles. And Jen loves that. She says, "Within our shadows lie our gold, our greatest strengths." And I think that's one of the interesting things, whether we're talking about it in human design or in life, whether it's in interpersonal relationships or in professional relationships. That other side, and sometimes that shadows, and Marie will laugh because I mentioned it years ago. We were at a retreat, board retreat, many moons ago for Fearless of the Hudson Valley. We're on the board, and for Hudson Valley peeps who are local, or my Jersey, Connecticut peeps who are ready to drive, come hang out. We're having a celebration of hope brunch that's upcoming on April 6th. Or as they would say, there's always a fearless event I can invite you to. We can go hang out at. But I think sometimes, like you're saying, that contradiction part, and that was something that I was lost in, that somebody really helped me understand in my chart. There's a channel which some will call a channel of struggle, and the person who really helped introduce me to quantum human design, Jamila Jamie said, this is a channel of exploration. And she laughed because human design, there are charts, it's a body graph. Reach out to Amazing Guin uh, for resources and supports and ways of understanding it. And you're going to laugh. We were talking about trust before. Human design.ai I learned because I was introduced to, because somebody had discovered it from Guin and they shared it with me. And for all of those chat GBTers, all those AI people, I didn't trust AI because ChatGPT kept talking about building trust, and we've been having a lot of conversations about this, and no accidents. Tomorrow's masterclass is cultivate trust as opposed to build trust. And I was delighted because an amazing PQ coach just asked me last week in PQ Coaches Collective, why building as opposed to cultivating? And if you want more information about that, pop into Amelia Gardner's Audio Leadership Club or hang out and wait for a post in a couple of days where it's a reminder when somebody really asks us the question. She asked me the question. Like if you ever said, what's a question you want somebody to ask you about trust? Another gift from the universe. You asked a teacher's kid. And I laugh because in retrospect, I now have a recording of it. I was like, oh, thank you so much. You're helping me prepare for next week's homework. But Guin, how should people, besides all of your Guin gems, how can they find you, stay in touch with you in between our lives? And Gwyn's coming back, no joke. But let us know what are great ways for people to get in touch with you and where to find you.
Absolutely. And just first, I wanted to address your channel of struggle, channel of exploration. I had a comment, something popped up, and I was like, I have to share this. The best way to win an argument is not to argue, and the best way you can understand someone is to ask the question. You can understand someone without agreeing with them too. Which is one thing the channel of struggle, I think, teaches us. But yeah, I think the one thing I hope people take away from this is that leadership, selling, tapping into your quiet genius, that's really the path. It doesn't need to feel like self-betrayal. When you can align with your strengths as well as your shadows, when you can trust your quiet genius and lead with clarity, leadership can feel natural, selling can feel natural and even effortless. So yeah, if you're curious about uncovering your own blueprint for effortless selling, get in touch with me. I am on LinkedIn right here. So yeah, I'm at Guin White here. You can also find me on Meta as Coach Guin or Prosperous Introvert. And you can find me at my website, guinwhite.com. But yeah, I would love for you to just connect with me, I think, on LinkedIn. It's the easiest place since we're already here for the most part.
Yeah, we also are on Meta, and Gwyn's got an amazing YouTube channel.
Oh, thank you.
Where you can find her podcasts. And I think one of the invitations, and I love it because so many, we're stuck sometimes in terms of having enough time. Gwyn's podcasts are like less than 10 minutes. Okay. And it feels like you're eating an amazing portobello mushroom for our vegans or an absolutely delicious rich steak. And Guin and Julie for Roy, who is on and joining us. Julie, we spoke earlier about messy to magical, and I laughed because Guin and Julie are in my dreams. So we're going to get the two of them together and shortly for more magical gems, because you help the teacher's kid's mind explode in a dream with, and then I mentioned you to Julie, and Julie's like, I'm like, Julie, something's encouraged me. Ask, do you know Guin? And Julie's like, yes. And I'm like, as we would say, from the positive intelligence perspective, party over here. And the best part is so many of us as coaches, as entrepreneurs, have overlapping and unique differential points, which is one of the things I love about Guin. She's really amazing at helping you you find and locate your defiant leader, as in Guin's term, because some feel like we're disruptors. We just don't fit into a mold. We don't fit into a peg. And part of it, as Guin's helped me understand, is really exploring that blueprint, whether we're using it for communication, for relationships, to build the business of our dreams, or to create the life of our dreams, or in terms that aren't necessarily so icky, so draining. And I just truly want to thank you, not only for joining us specifically today. And when Guin and I planned this, I didn't realize we were having a series of trust masterclasses and audio leadership club. So I want to thank you and a lot of our guests for just diving in and sharing your gems, whether you're curious or interested. But I really want you to just accept Guin's invitation to really, how can more of us learn to really create the practice of trusting our quiet genius, or even acknowledging one might be in there, that brilliant gem. But as we're talking, please invite someone else in who you feel can benefit from a conversation of exploring their blueprint, exploring self-trust, exploring, as Guin's inviting us, explore, trust-based sales. And to remember, parents may be our number one salespeople on the planet, or, across a generational perspective. But thank you so much for joining us today, Guin. And may the force continue to be with you. And thank you for bringing some great sage energies and a sage contagion to our Impossible Live, and for joining us during this journey towards 3 years in 2 weeks. We will be celebrating. And
thank you, Mel. Oh my
thank
God.
you. Oh my gosh. Love to extend an invitation for you to invite someone else into our Impossible Live community, to check out Guin, to pop into our Trust Masterclasses, to check out your human design and how your blueprint can help you rock and locate your quiet genius. And we hope you have a magical, magnificent day filled with opportunities and possibilities. Stay safe, stay well, stay inspired, and stay in touch. Take care. Thanks again, Guin.
Thank you, Mel. Be well.